The task force like to compare this to an organized crime investigation.
I didn't really keep up with the literature that followed the Enron prosecutions after I left the law firm. But one of the prosecutors wrote a book about not just his experience in the Enron prosecutions, but his experience as a prosecutor his whole career. And probably the most shocking revelation in the book was that the decision to use mafia prosecutors rather than white-collar prosecutors in this case was deliberate. And I hadn't really thought about that before. But he said that they chose mafia prosecutors and that he got the job because he was a mafia prosecutor, and that the other prosecutors got their jobs with the Enron task force because they were mafia prosecutors. And these guys, as mafia prosecutors, who have a reputation as being the toughest prosecutors in the Department of Justice. But they personally felt like, prior to that, the government had always gone too soft on white-collar criminals. One of the things that this former prosecutor wrote about mafia prosecutors in particular was that they successfully prosecuted cases by threatening people, by threatening witnesses, by threatening defendants with prison, by threatening witnesses with prison, by threatening people's spouses, by threatening people's livelihoods. And that's the way mafia prosecutors get convictions. In mafia cases, they don't investigate criminal activity and come up with an indictment of the top guy and then prosecute him, like they do in white-collar cases. In mafia cases, they go after a little guy and they flip him. That is, they threaten him or actually prosecute him and get a conviction and get him to agree to turn evidence on the next guy above him, either for an agreement not to prosecute him at all or an agreement to give him a better deal when they do prosecute him, or in many of those cases to actually move him somewhere safe where he won't get murdered. White-collar cases don't work that way. White-collar cases are about paper. White-collar cases are about explain what this paper says and what it means. But these mafia cases are all about flipping one person to rat out another guy who's leveraged to rat out the next guy. That explains a lot of the activities that they undertook in the Enron prosecution or the Enron investigation. They didn't investigate people because they were going to prosecute them or investigate people to protect Americans from fraud. They threatened people and they actually prosecuted people, and they were just generally mean to people just to get them to flip and give evidence against whoever they saw as the next guy up the line. He actually admits that they generated as much evidence as they could to try to get Ken Rice and Kevin Hannon to flip so that they could prosecute Jeff Skilling, or to use in the prosecution against Jeff Skilling. The prosecutor talks about an interesting paradox that's involved with questioning someone that they consider an executive or someone who they feel is really, really scared to go to prison. They're used to dealing with criminals who will make a deal to do a little bit of prison time. They'll admit to their something in order to make some sort of deal because they're not that worried about prison time. But when they deal with people they consider white-collar criminals, and they see these guys as really, really scared to go to prison, this is a huge change in their life. So he says that the reason that it's extremely difficult to get these guys to admit that they've done something wrong is because they have this terrific fear of prison, let alone the fact that they actually might be innocent. He says that the final convictions of Jeff Skilling and Ken Lay justified their questionable tactics.